Hey guys, welcome back to another Spy Family Sunday. Today I'm here to talk about Spy Family Chapter 118. But before I get started, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you leave me a comment because I do like talking about these chapters after they drop. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So this is a pretty straightforward chapter. I know what everybody's wanting to discuss, but we will definitely get there. I do want to mention that I like the way this chapter starts. There's this really cool panel that just says Spy Family, and it takes half of the page up and then you just see Forrest. It's really cool. I think Indo's done it before. I don't know. There's just something about the contrast of seeing Spy Family and then his artwork. So I just thought it was really cool. So the chapter starts off with them finding the enemy base. It's the director, Hemlock, and Yor. And they're scoping out the place. They're using binoculars to see how many people there are. They're guessing 20 to 25 people. So their first goal is to destroy the comms because there could be other bases. So Yor's tapped in, she's listening. Hemlock is still sort of dazed, and you see the massive bump that's on his head. He's mumbling about making out and being married with friends. Director is like, what are those wounds y'all have? And Yor's like, we kind of got into a bit of a squabble. She doesn't really go into any more detail than that. We then see a panel of this random poacher. His neck gets snapped by the director, and then his hawk catches the gun, which is just badass. And so they're making pretty quick work of this campsite, and Hemlock is sort of just dazed and like sleepwalking through everything, and so Yor has to like drag him along. Some of the poachers at the campsite are like, have we heard from some of the other teams? Maybe we should get in contact with them. They're starting to get a little bit nervous. The director comes up behind one of them with a walkie-talkie, takes care of him. Yor's destroying the equipment with her blades. Again, Hemlock is just sort of there. He's not doing anything. Yor and the director are, taking people out left and right. There are some goons that try to approach Hemlock, and he's still looking dazed, and Yor's like, Hemlock, like, look out, like these guys are coming after you. But in classic Spy Family fashion, I mean, he slashes the guy, but you can tell that his head is just not all there. So it's not like we really have to worry about him. But then he starts to get surrounded by these guys, and Yor's like, Hemlock, I need you to like pay attention to what's going on. You're not gonna be able to get these guys. You're out of range. Like, I broke your sword during our battle. And so it's funny because Hemlock still looks dazed, and Yor sort of like pushes him forward so he can be in range with, because they have machine guns. So it's like, we sort of got to do this quickly before we end up full of bullets. Something about one of the men saying, hey, we need to surround this guy, like snaps Hemlock out of his daze. And he's like, can you only fight like when you swarm people, like you stupid gnats? He wakes up and he's just, murking people alongside Yor. They end up cleaning the whole campsite, so it's completely destroyed. And director is like, looks like that's settled. We should wait for the recovery team to come and clean everything up. We'll just dispose of all the weapons near the river. And he's like, all right, well, should we head back? And Hemlock's like, nah, I'm gonna walk back. It would be inappropriate for me to accompany you any further. I'll return myself. There's no argument from Yor or the director. And Yor's sort of worried. She's like, is it okay that we just left him here? And the director's like, if that's what he wants. And so Hemlock is still sort of going through, I wouldn't say, obviously not a midlife crisis, he's too young for that, but like, he is just profoundly confused by everything that's gone on. And he's like, it wasn't enough, it wasn't adequate enough, like, my solitude is not big enough, like, I have to double down so that I don't end up like her. And he's like imagining Yor being like, Eve, like, save me, like my husband, like, and when you get home, I'll give you a welcome home kiss. And, there's a panel that says, clearly Yor, like, never said any of this. And so the bump on his head is, like, throbbing, and he, like, kneels over, and he's like, unless I'm mistaken, and he's like, could marriage make me stronger? So he's just having all of this internal dialogue with himself. He's like, my grandfather was a hardened veteran. He's like, those who stand above always stand alone. And so he's just very conflicted about whether he wants to commit to solitude or whether he wants to actually actually maybe embrace some of this stuff. And so Yor and the director are having a conversation about Hemlock on these topics. And so it's making Yor sort of reflect on these things. And she's like, as an assassin, I'm starting to wonder, like, was it a mistake to marry? And the director simply says, like, that is something that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. Like, it's basically a case-by-case scenario. The director's like, the question should be, like, what makes you stronger? And, like, when are you at your strongest? Are you stronger because you have people you want to protect? Or are you stronger because you're just committed to your goals? You know, he just says that there's really no good answer for that. And Yor's like, why did you get married? And then she sort of retracts because she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to like ask you such a personal question. And he's like, it's fine. And what he reveals is that he was married before he joined the organization. You know, he was committed to his country, and he takes pride in doing his work. And so that part of his life, he just keeps away from his wife. And he tells Yor that, like, I doubt she would stay with me if I told her what I do. But then on the opposite side of the coin, I also have hope that she would. And maybe that's what keeps me going. And maybe that's what keeps us together, is like this hope that like things won't just fall apart. And that really resonates with Yor. And she's like, is that the reason why I'm hoping as well, like even in this sham of a marriage? You know, and she's reflecting on her time with Lloyd and, you know, just everything that they've been through. You know, the director is like, right now, you know, my marriage is a little bit different from, you know, what Hemlock's characterization of it is. You know, he's like, until the day I die, I'm gonna wear this mask. Like, I don't want, you know, anything to happen to our marriage. I don't want anything to happen to my wife. I have no misgivings about this. Like, the director is content in the fact that he is lying to her, but he's also proud to serve his country. In his eyes, he's not really doing his wife like an injustice by not telling her these things. And so he tells Yor, he's like, look, if you're having second thoughts about your marriage, then you need to just end it. And when I read this, I was like, dude, stuff is getting real. Like, this is getting deep. I don't know how much longer Spy Family is going to be. I know that Indo Sensei said it's going to be a long series, but what does that mean? Like 200 chapters, 300 chapters, we're already in the hundreds now. But the fact that like the director is encouraging Yor to like leave her marriage if she's having second thoughts about it is crazy. Considering they work for City Hall, so it's like, how is that going to help her situation as far as her cover? I mean, is she just supposed to abandon everything and just commit 100% to the Red Garden? I mean, like, maybe that's what he's suggesting to her. You know, Yor is sort of taken aback by this. Like, you can tell there's like this panel that doesn't show her face and she looks upset. And so you can tell, like, this is eating at her. When she gets home, Anya's there. She's like, hi, Anya. You're like, I'm home. Like, where's Lloyd? You know, Anya's like, oh, he's in his room reading. But, you know, she's like, actually, he's doing a mission report. And Yor's like, oh, okay, I see. Anya reads her mind. She's like, oh, no, like, Mama was in a battle. And Yor's going to her room. And then she stops at the end of the hallway and she sees Lloyd's room. And she's like, I don't care to really tell him about my real job, but like, she's thinking to herself how she can't really bear this secret anymore. And so the chapter ends with her knocking on his door. And so from that, we can presume that she's really considering like whether or not she wants to sit down and have this conversation with Lloyd. Now, I don't know if this means that she's like, hey, I need to tell you that I am an assassin, I work for the Red Garden, like all of this stuff about myself, or if she's thinking about telling him that the marriage simply isn't working and that she wants to leave. Like, either way, it's a huge revelation if it happens. Like, you know how Spy Family is. Something can happen to where they get interrupted, but the fact that Yor is like, you know, starting to really consider like what this marriage means to her is like huge. Like, it's complicated because as a reader, we know that Yor has feelings for Lloyd. But does the character Yor actually understand her own feelings for Lloyd? Like, you understand what I'm saying? Because I feel like that is going to be an important part of the conversation. Like, if we can get Yor to actually understand like how she feels about Lloyd and this family, like, it'll make it easier for her to make a decision that, you know, will ultimately serve her in a capacity that's most beneficial to her. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this conversation. Like, whatever happens, I feel like we're about to get some major character development, whichever way that goes. Because Lloyd is also half of this. So it's like, how is he going to feel about her saying all of this, considering he's using her for his mission? And I use that word like lightly, because even as a reader, we understand that Lloyd is slowly developing feelings for Yor as well, even though he, quote unquote, is using her for the mission. So, yeah, the next chapter is definitely going to be interesting. So, I am very curious to see how these character dynamics are going to clash. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, remember to be awesome and stay true.